How was your year? As usual, I'm going to invest in a new movie. I laugh, a job almost lost behind the scenes. Dare to say investment in movies? Hey, Yangshan, are you the latest Cartier watch? It's beautiful. Zhao Xinshan, a face of pride. Vanity is greatly satisfied. The girl who complimented Zhao Xinshan curled her lips, and the contempt in her eyes flashed by. I looked at my wristwatch. It was the same as mine. The company has its hands full getting ready to go public. Gouger, dressed in a sober suit, is still the old cardra he once was. Li Xiong stood in the middle of the room with He Ziming on his arm, a beautiful young man, enjoying the envious glances of everyone. Whose youth has not been obsessed with the beauty of the class? And who has not sent some schoolgrass did not receive a reply to the love letter? He Ziming, a university professor, is in charge of a big project recently. Unfortunately, I'm one of the biggest investors in the project. I looked for, finally saw hiding in the corner of Su Xian, a person is quite lonely. I make a half-clenched fist with my right hand, the fingernail of my index finger digging into my thumb, a gesture that habitually betrays itself when I see them. That's weird. I can't remember the names of 0 rich bosses, but I can remember the names of the losers. I raised the corners of my lips and gave off a smile that I thought was perfect. The sight of them showing off, while making small talk, made me feel as sick as if I'd swallowed my lunch of mud. Looking at the Larbet humane, I smiled again and stepped through the door. The noisy room was quiet for an instant, and everyone stared at me in surprise. You see me in my tracksuit, and you look down on me. When He Ziming saw me, his face turned white and he pretended to be calm to chat with others around him. Su Xian looked at me and hurriedly lowered his head and shrunk his neck. Only Zhang Song opened his eyes and took a sip of baijiu in silence. I remember him. I was interviewed by him 3 months ago. He was probably the only person in the room who knew who I was. I silently walked to Su Xian opposite, appreciate her shrink appearance, leisurely poured a glass of red wine. Not far from the sound of voices, not to hide me. What is she doing here? 10 sessions of the class reunion. How come this time? Bad luck. I pinched my right index finger with my left hand to prevent myself from pinching myself. Really good. Most of the bullying my classmates are in the capital development. Can catch it. I may look better, but I'm still the same person, and I probably still like to hook up with people. Well, now that you mention it, I often see her out at the door of the Golden nightclub. Zhao Xinshan said excitedly, a face found the truth of excitement. There is inexplicable jealousy in the eyes. I snorted. She was selling drinks and meat in a small nightclub, and she wouldn't let anyone else go to a high-end nightclub to talk business. The tone is so sour. Do you want to go to a nightclub to catch a guy, suffering from no chance? Li Song, trembling at the noise, gave me a wary look. I shook my wine glass slowly, ignoring everyone. He jerked to his feet and shouted, shut up. I looked askance at him. If someone had stood up for me, the outcome might have been different. I sneer, now what? Want to brush good feeling in front of me, in order to obtain greater benefits? The other stopped and stared at Zhang Song, wondering what the hell was wrong with him. Zhang Song came up to me with a glass of wine, his back slightly hunched. Smile at me ingratiatingly. Don't talk nonsense, I whispered, suppressing my disgust. They watched as Zhang Song toasted me and then walked back to his seat. There was speculation about Zhang Song's relationship with me. Zhang Song had to bow down to the idea that I was being taken care of by some rich, powerful man. They didn't dare to talk out loud at once, but their disgust grew in their eyes. Seeing my poor appearance, they guessed that I had been abandoned by the boss, and began to judge and insult me arbitrarily. And he Zieming has not been involved in the discussion, just quietly as a bystander. I shifted my gaze to Su Xuan, who had just moved quietly. She cupped her wine and tried to ignore me. It turned out that she wasn't going to apologize to me. My senior 3, this year of hard work, but as if cannot see the bright night. I was PUA myself. I felt like a piece of shit, and I was depressed. After the college entrance examination, they were admitted to the ideal university. I became the only one in the class did not enter the university. As they called for friends to celebrate, I stared at my shattered phone screen and burst into tears. In front of me are 2 roads. 1, to the big city to work for money. 2, to the specialist. I began to reflect, what makes me what I am now? When I was a high school student, I got excellent grades and was the top student in my class. They bullied me. They were bad people. Why did I end up worse? Why am I doing that shit? I cry every night. I know I'm having psychological problems. Mom and Dad aren't very knowledgeable, but they know that vocational school is useless. They encouraged me to go out to work, to earn a few years for the family. It is time to get married. No, I want to repeat it. When the idea of rereading popped up, I was shocked. Mom and Dad won't agree. They think I'm useless if I don't get into college. They can't afford to pay for my repeat. I gritted my teeth. Really funny. I got depression, did not dare to tell them. Cannot openly to medical treatment. Such is the sorrow of the poor. Such a precious disease I cannot afford. I quickly dry the tears. I have not died. There is a way out. In the county to find a breakfast shop. 50 yuan a day. Every morning from 5 o'clock, ride the electric bike to sell food. After earning 400 yuan in 8 days, I bought everything for my family. A fool sees only what he can see, what he can touch. My mother smiled from ear to ear and called my father to tell him about some things I had bought. They are happy, think I am a filial child, naturally agreed to me to reread. I listened to their teachings. Only give you this one chance, or get married. My face was grateful, but my heart was bleak. I know that 400 bucks did the trick. I found a new school. Learning atmosphere is not good, and I often think of the picture of bullying by former classmates. Think of incorrigible parents. My heart gushes out a deadly spread to the whole body. Tears have become the least valuable thing. I thought I could do better, but I was admitted to a second-tier college. It's okay. I still have a chance. Zhao Xinxin's bark pulls me away from the memory. I look at the Chanel bag she's talking about. It's not even a top-shelf bag. I went up to her and grabbed her hand. Your watch is the same as mine. Ear. She was stunned for a moment and pulled her hand back in panic. You, what are you doing? I put the picture in my phone in front of them. Here is my certificate for buying a watch. Your watch has some details that are different from mine. Point to so far, we know, laughing at Zhao Xinxin. She looked at me fiercely. And my watch is real. Your picture must be P. You a hostess. How can you afford to buy a brand name watch? Really? I pulled out the evidence from my cell phone and casually said, is this your contract to rent watches and bags? And what about your signature? You don't know anything about luxury, so it's normal to be cheated. Zhao Xinxin, surprised, stood up and took away my cell phone, hands trembling. I kindly reminded, this is the latest mobile phone, 2 months of your salary, you'd better be careful. The look of derision of the people around me and Zhao Xinxin, consciously away from some, to give us an empty place to fight. Zhao Xinxin, pale face, came up to scratch my face. A UTM with sleep money to buy a bag, you make people sick. I took her wrist in my left hand and slapped her in the face with my right hand at great speed. With a snap, Zhao Xinshan froze, and everyone froze. Perhaps they thought I was still that timid, cowardly Ling Nan. Looking at her swollen cheeks, I said coolly, "You don't have to work as a hostess in a nightclub anymore. I specially accompany wine at 2 words bite very heavy." Zhao Xinshan whole body trembles, frightenedly looking at me. I remember her collecting the chalk and pouring it all over my hair, and I had to cut it off. I remember she put worms in my lunch and made me eat it. I vomited for days. I remember the awful look on her face when she put my hand under the soles of her feet. It had been my nightmare for years. She, and he, and they were the executioners of my youth. Even those who watched the show, indifferent bystanders, a cold-blooded devil. Once thought, as long as there is a person for me, I will not be so embarrassed, so sad. People seem to believe I'm being kept by bigwigs, which is why I'm Duke Xiao of Qi to pick on them. They stay away from me like I'm a piece of trash. Pity, disgust, envy, ridicule. All kinds of eyes, the same as in the old days. I drew a bloodthirsty smile. "Who the hell are you?" Gouger assumed the posture of the squad leader and presided over the situation. "Waiter, why isn't the food on the table yet? Your family service is too bad, believe it or not, to give you a bad review." The waiter looked at me and I smiled. "It's not dinner time yet. Besides, can you read the menu in English?" I looked at Gouger, the most hypocritical of men. I bent my head slightly and smelled the scent of camellias around my neck. It was good. When I first started being bullied, I hoped he would do his duty as squad leader and let the bullies get what they deserved. I thought he was the light in the darkness, the belated justice. But he accuses me of being smelly and hates me for coming near. His expression, covering his mouth and nose, crushed the sensitive and fragile self-esteem of a young girl. So far my clothes were a day to wash, all around the items are fragrant, always shrouded in a touch of camellia fragrance. I made my way to Gouger, my senior year of high school, where I was isolated from everyone, to save the girl who was crying in the shadows. Gouger took a step back and looked at me in astonishment. "I've never bullied you. What are you doing here?" "Just now I heard from the monitor that the company is preparing to go public." I stared at him, funny, with eyes like knives, and nailed him to a cross. His forehead sweated and he leaned in to warn me, "You know what? If you talk nonsense, I'll have someone beat you up." Seeing me teach Zhao Xinshan a lesson, how can you guess that I am the one he can't afford to provoke? How can he have the courage to warn me? Do you really think of me as someone else's mistress? Can he look down on, let him beat? I nodded to the waiter, who ushered in the guest from the private room. Seeing the men in vests, Gouger stood up in a panic, and they quickly blocked Gouger's path. "You've been hiding for a long time, and now you've been caught. Give me my money back." The fat man grabbed Gouger by his tie and picked him up. The students pricked up their ears, afraid to look, but eager to gossip. Gouger's image of the upper class had taken root. Gouger looked around in embarrassment and begged humbly, Brother, my family has money. Let's go now." I stopped them and smiled softly. "Brother, isn't Gouger going public? Why do I still owe you money?" Gouger clenched his fists and stared at me with scarlet eyes. As if they had heard a joke, they laughed. "The company? Fuck Gouger. He's a bad gambler. He's in debt to the company," she said, slapping Gouger in the face. As if thinking of something, the fat man paused, rubbed his hands, and smiled apologetically at me. "Excuse me, boss. I'm used to rudeness." Thank you for telling me where he is, or we wouldn't have caught him. I smiled and waved my hand. Just a lift. The man wrenched Gouger away, and everyone stared at me with different expressions on their faces. It should be remembered at this moment that I am the devil who crawled out of hell to collect their debts. Su Xian, with a white face, grabbed his bag and wanted to leave. I blocked her way with a cold smile. Miss, aren't you going to apologize? Walking around her, I sneered. Su is broke. I thought you were a daughter. Su Xian opens her mouth, but pride prevents her from apologizing, and an elite education keeps her from bowing her head. She pushed me away and strode away. I looked at her back and waved for the waiter to serve. The students looked at me in shock, all from the mind to leave. I adjusted my coat and hat and said, if you leave today, I will tell your secret. Like, so-and-so cheated on his wife and tried to kill her with cause. Someone shivers and pours himself a drink. Someone has a gossipy look on their face. For example, so-and-so embezzled public funds. The company hasn't suspected him yet. A frightened look on SB's face forced his composure on his position. And shut up, Ling Nan. What do you want? Ho Chak Ming interrupted angrily. He's Yiming. What I hate most is you. Course you're the source of all my tragedies. I was bullying's story began, because he's Yiming a look, a word, a gesture, zero deliberately ambiguous moment. Su Xuanhong is the richest man in town. Her father to do business to the emperor, want to take Su Xuan over, but she refused to Heziming. He Yiming was the child of her driver, and they had been childhood sweethearts. It's an old story, isn't it? Their shit drags me into it. Su Xian likes He Yiming, but she has been carrying a shelf, refused to He Yiming confession, also do and to allow him to have other girls. Gradually, He Yiming's vague affection for her vanished and he secretly fell in love with Li Xiong. He Yiming no Su Xian paranerd, absolutely can't tolerate him to like others. He decided to find a scapegoat, need all aspects of the ordinary me to help him divert Su Xuan's anger. I admit, I was tempted for a moment at first. Occasional eye contact, careless touch of the hand, and his full support. The girl's face red and frantic heartbeat let me give birth to a kind of illusion. Perhaps he also likes me. I wanted to slap myself in the face, not knowing who I was, and then kick He Yiming, a scumbag who cheated girls out of their innocent feelings. Su Xuan began to give me a lot of trouble. Sometimes he wrote insulting words in my seat, sometimes he poured stinky water all over me, sometimes he wet my bed. Once impressed, Su Xuan framed me for stealing her new mobile phone. I looked at all the people I was asking for help, some of them looking down to study, some of them laughing, waiting to laugh at my jokes, but no one would give me a look to encourage me to believe. I clung to my school bag as if defending a dignity that no longer existed. Trying to find his teacher in the office, Su Xian snatched his school bag. She stepped on my pink pencil case, looked down to pick up her cell phone, and smiled triumphantly at me. I told you she stole it. The playgoers groaned, their eyes full of disgust and sarcasm. Looking at her feet on the bottom of the pen box has been dirty, as if my self-esteem was they trampled at will. The worst time I remember, she got a bunch of punks to scare me. If I don't take off my clothes, Su Xian will let them talk to me. I remember taking off my clothes one by one and closing my eyes, but I couldn't stop the tears. The biting cold wind drilling into the clothes inside, the ear is half the big boys' whistles one after another. Finally, Su Xian stopped my action, because He Yiming came. She didn't want to give He Yiming left a bad impression. Did she really think that He Yiming, a modest gentleman, didn't know what she was doing? Su Xian is a clever student on the surface, but secretly he has a good relationship with the thugs in the internet bar. One time she got into a fight and accidentally stabbed her little sister. Although the girl's parents chose to settle privately, the crime was caught on video. In order to protect the privacy of minors, Su Xian's face was painted on the mosaic. Online public opinion out of control. Su Xian, but let me help her take the rap. I still remember her ugly face threatening me. Ling Nan, if you don't take the rap for me, your family won't be here. I know she has the power to tear my family apart. I spent 2 months in a correctional facility, and it was a nightmare in the silence, as if the air had frozen. All the while I was wondering why on earth it had come to this. Why so wretched, so pathetic? Hang in there a little longer, and you'll be fine after the college entrance examination. After being bullied by Su Xian for many times, I dare not think much of his Yiming anymore. I just want to get as far away from them as possible. I went to my monitor, Gouger, who kicked me out in disgust, and I went to my teacher, who said, why do they only bully you? Or did you do something wrong? He didn't even comfort me. I actually wondered if I had done something wrong. Since then, open self-poor, his depression is becoming more and more serious. Many children at home, parents do not care about my feelings. I know, Sichuan family power, parents cannot help, will only think I trouble. My grades are not good. The teacher does not want to offend Su Xian for me. Su Xian, who has a great career, can cut off my family's life with one finger. My parents love face. His family was bullied and dare not do anything, will only put gas on me. I dare not tell them. Stick with it for a few more months, and the college entrance exam will be over. Senior 3 more and more tight. Su Xian to study hard, bullying my task to Zhao Xinshan. I heard that bullying me once Sichuan pay her 100 yuan. No wonder Zhao Xinshan like bullying me. My right index finger embedded in the thumb. There are more than a month. After the college entrance examination, everything will be over. I hate he's aiming more and more. If he doesn't make misunderstanding action, I also won't be bullied so miserable. Seeing him walking towards the playground, I furtively followed him, trying to find him to explain. Since he doesn't like me, quickly explain to Sichuan, let her don't bully me. But the sickening sight of he and Li Xiong kissing each other in the shadow of no one was there. In a flash of lightning, I all want to understand. He's aiming in order to protect the girls he likes, take me as a shield. Ho Chak Ming. I shouted. I pointed angrily at him. You did it on purpose to protect Li Xiong. He Chak Ming looked annoyed. Are you going to tell Su Xian? He needed Li Xiong's tender hand. If I were you, I would call Su Xian secretly to see us kissing. Shame on you. He didn't care. Ling Nan, the college entrance exam is in a month. I told them not to bully you. How about you help me keep the secret? I wanted to say no loudly, but then I thought, Su Xian wouldn't choose to believe me without evidence. It would be better to win some time for him to study safely. After thinking about it, I nodded. He's aiming, you wait, the gentleman revenge. 10 years is not too late. Easy to say, I have delayed too many courses. Expected college entrance examination failed. Gnashing of teeth to repeat a year. Also only took an examination of the 2 institutions. I study hard and go out to work in summer and winter holidays. I know, to achieve class jump, you need the help of noble people. In fact, Zhao Xinshan guess is right. I was really the big boss kept. That day, Song Jiqi staggered out of the nightclub and vomited heavily on the side of the road. I dress beautiful, pure temperament. Pick him up carefully. Are you all right? Where is your home? Shall I take you home? When he opened his eyes, he pressed me against the tree trunk and forced me to kiss him. I pushed him away, threw him next to the trash can, and walked away. Man, that's disgusting. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. 10 paces later, I turned around and dragged him into my rented room with a sigh. I threw him on the bed and curled up on the floor and fell asleep. In the morning, I put on an apron to make breakfast. When the first ray of sunshine passes through the window, bringing me a layer of golden rays, I know that Songjichi also has a moment of heart. Men are too easy to get but do not cherish. I want to refuse to meet, he pursued. Later, holding me in his arms, he told me with a smile that he knew I was going to hook up with him from the first moment he saw me, and that he had courted me, even though the calculation in my eyes was well hidden. And I know I'll come back and I'll bring him home. He thought I would sleep with him again, but I just fell asleep on the floor. I worked as a nightclub hostess. Songjichi was a regular. I was wearing so much makeup that he couldn't recognize me before or after. He lives a life of debauchery and luxury to a degree you can't even imagine. Women come one after another, only to fight a second half of the rich family life. During the months when Songjichi was most interested in me, I didn't ask him for all kinds of luxury goods as other women did. I asked him to take me to some parties to see what I could do, and he took me to business events. The first time I went to a commercial event, I made a name for myself. At the banquet, a Japanese business partner talked to Songjichi, and I acted as a temporary interpreter. During the conversation, Songjichi was very satisfied with my performance. After the end, the partner took my hand not to loosen, mouth said some teasing words. Songjichi couldn't understand, but seeing my livid face, he took me in his arms and pulled my hand back. "Tell him you're my girlfriend," he shouted. I smiled and translated the sentence to the Japanese partner. Songjichi looked as if he had dug up a treasure and asked me which other language I knew. "Well, I've taught myself Korean, Japanese, and French, and now I'm learning Russian." Surprised, he asked me what I wanted. I told him I wanted to learn to play golf. He readily agreed. What's the point of being a rich daughter-in-law? I want to make a super rich family for myself. What is this? Lee Seung's screams pulled me from memory to reality, and I scowled and croaked. The food on the table was homemade, bought in the cafeteria of a nearby school, only I had them sprinkle it with high-protein dressing. As long as you eat 3 bites of the food in front of you, I won't reveal your little secret, eh? They looked at me as if I had killed their father. Iziming stood up and held up his cell phone. "Do you believe I posted what you did on the internet?" Suddenly we seemed to see the dawn of justice. Justice? I twiddle my fingers. "You mean, you're working on a big project? Eh?" He looked at me suspiciously, not knowing what I meant. I also raised the mobile phone, gently shaking. "Believe me, a phone. Your project to someone else. To whom? Your mortal enemy? Lin, what kind of health seems?" Iziming looked shocked. The hand holding up the mobile phone was shaking. "You must be lying to me, eh?" I laughed. "I've changed my mind. You don't have to eat. Let Iziming eat the next dish and I'll let you go, ear." Smell speech, Iziming staggers about to fall, fortunately held the table. Everyone stared at him with hopeful eyes, full of dream joy and growing impatience. Lee Seung gripped his arm, shivering slightly. Iziming straightened up. "You must have bombed me. I'll post the video on the internet now, eh?" I pressed the answer button, the rich voice from the mobile phone. "Hello, Commander Ling." Iziming pounced, grabbed my phone, and hung up as fast as he could. He heaved a sigh of relief and clutched his phone. I shouted, Eat up." Startled, He looked at me, glanced around, and shuffled to his seat. After watching the wriggling worm for a full minute, he picked up his spoon unsteadily. I watched him struggle to his mouth into a mouth. His Zeeming Adam's apple rolled quickly swallowed. I closed my eyes and watched him throw his pride on the ground, and some of my inhibitions lifted. Turning away from the compartment, I heard footsteps rushing out of the door behind me. Jong Song stopped me in my tracks and bowed to me 90 degrees. I'm sorry. I sneered. Why? You didn't bully me. What apology? He wrings his fingers. I didn't help you because... Talk a lot of rubbish. A belated apology doesn't work. Sadly, some people don't even realize they're apologizing to the victim. He was even more embarrassed. I didn't mean anything by it. I just felt I should apologize to you. He had witnessed me being bullied at the scene, but he did not look askance, refused to leave me a look, trembling to go. I know, to help me is duty, not to help me is duty. Jong Song was my senior year deskmate and the only friend I had anyone to talk to. He walked away cold. What I thought of as friendship didn't exist. I hated him, but I also know, no one will rush to you, save you, only self-help can be truly free. My psychology is strong enough, but the youth students' bullying, indifference around, like a knife into the chest. Even if the wound heals, still can leave ugly scar, recall oneself unique youth time, only feel pain and depression. Just wait, my trial is not over. Walking out of the dining room, I exhaled a foul breath. Turning round, he saw Song Jichi leaning against a Bentley, smoking impatiently, his cold brow half hidden in the smoke. I stopped and gave a little cough. He stood up and quickly put out his cigarette. Song Jichi waved his hand to dispel the smoke. Why so late? A few feet away, I said, Commander Song, are we enemies now? I stole your dad's project. Why are you still after me? Sure enough, men are the same cheap, cannot get is the best. He stopped the act of opening the car door for me. You deserve your success. You personally dissolved our relationship. Why are you doing this now? I paused. Or are you really in love with me? Song Jichi was dumbfounded. He didn't speak for a long time. I waited impatiently and called my driver. He came up to me and take my hand. I think I'm in love with you. The parable of the prodigal son? The sea king coming ashore? Funny, I wouldn't believe a stallion. I shook his hand. You guessed it. I managed to steal the project from the Song family by getting the word out of you. Song Jichi was stiff but not angry. He said woodenly, shall we start again? Is he trying to extract trade secrets from my company, or is he up to something with me? I got into the car. He clutched the door. I now work in the company. Sung Group at any time you are welcome. My heart sneers. Mean I still can like before, by his girlfriend identity at will in and out of the company? I sat in the car and the acacia trees in the lane moved back. To tell the truth, Song Jichi is not bad to me. He took me to high-end establishments and taught me the rules of high society. Of course, I reciprocated by serving as his free translator, and as a lover, I won him a lot of face. I was not the only lover of Song Jichi, so I was sober and never gave him my heart. After I'd been with him for 2 months, his interest in me had waned. I have also befriended some of the best people at the best parties, and I know what they think. Wang Dao is the scion of a wealthy family I met at a dance. The way he looked at me, like a hungry wolf at a sheep, made my heart tremble and the fish took the bait. Before I could do it, Wang Dao offered to buy a new luxury. I look like my sister who saved him from death, he said. Oh, pretty dramatic. I thought it was a pickup line, but Wang Dao didn't have a crush on me, and it seemed like he was really paying me back for 20 years of missing my sister. My family is Trong Nam Kin En. I'm not close to my brother. Gradually, I tried to think of Wang Dao as my brother, my friend. Apparently, Wang Dao is my man. I made a fortune investing with Wang Dao. When I had enough strength, I told him, "Want to bid Song Group will win the project." He laughed at me. I smiled and answered, "How can not win? Song Group without this project is still operating. My company needs this project to stand on its feet." He promised to help me, and I was more confident of winning the project. Wang Dao advised me, and I used my identity to steal Song's trade secrets. I told him, after the success of 73 points, also cannot let others make money. After all, his brother clear accounts. Before the tournament started, Song Jiqi, out of nowhere, heard that I was close to Wang Dao and slapped me in the face. "Ling Nan, you are nothing without me." I buried my head in my knees to keep from laughing. He thinks I can't live without him, but the company I founded is no different from the Song Group. 3 months ago, Zhang Song spent 5 days at my company, insisting on an interview with the dark horse of the tournament. I chewed the word Zhang Song over and over until I remembered that it was time to deal with the executioners. I gave an exclusive interview to Zhang Song, who could fit an egg in his open mouth. His voice quavering, I reminded him that I didn't want to reveal my identity until after the reunion. He nodded, knowing what to do. I surveyed some of my old classmates, and their situation surprised me. I don't know if it's karma or not. When I found out that the company also invested in the project He Ziming was in charge of, I laughed, laughing without image, laughing until tears came to my eyes. I bit my lower lip at the thought of them today. All of them. Reap what they sow. "Boss, back to the office?" the driver asked, glancing in his rearview mirror. I managed to laugh out loud and said, "You go back and I'll have some fun. Ear." Looking at the car left chic, I quickly put on sunglasses, mouth floating smile, tears on both sides are rapidly rolling into 2 lines. I went straight to the convenience store and bought 8 beers and hid in a small park. It's dinner time, so don't worry about too many tourists. I chug and 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 chug. A boy walked by with his dog, glanced at me, and hurried away. Finally revenge. Finally put them all underfoot. I laughed and laughed. Laugh rampant. Laugh sad. Laughing and crying. How sad I am. I spent 10 years in there because of those arseholes. After 10 years of fighting with myself, it's over. I cried out of breath, for the lonely fighting Ling Nan, hiding in the corner of the girl. Around the quiet, moonlight pouring down, I laugh and cry voice is really strange. I looked at that bringing the moon. If there is no evil, I can do noble moon. Suddenly he held out a piece of toilet paper. "Well, go home as soon as you're done. It's too dangerous for you to be here alone." I wanted to wipe away my tears so no one would see me cry. Forget it. There's no need to be flashy. Through the tears, I didn't look at him. I saw Doberman Pinscher with his tongue wagging at me. His eyes were bright and his limbs strong. It's the dog walker. His back. Perhaps to see me cry in grief, I am afraid not open-minded. I tried to keep my voice level. "I'm fine, thank you." But he didn't pick up the toilet paper he handed him. The stranger didn't dare to pick up anything. Embarrassed, he withdrew his hand. "Well, then, I'll go." "Hey, Po, what are you doing?" Doberman Pinscher was coming straight at me. I couldn't get out of the way. I looked at the dog's face and it was licking my cheek, itching. When he tried to take it away, he couldn't move. He looked horrified. "Po, you ate shit." Eh. I opened my eyes, pushed the dog away, and wiped my face with my sleeve. My face was as clean as ever, but my heart was still in shock. I glared at the man. "What's wrong with you?" But the man blinked innocently and then laughed. Har har har. Po made a dash for it and I caught him in time. I'm relieved. The dog's mouth is clean. Wait, why did he just let the dog lick my face when he could have held it? And act like you can hold it? At this time, I found that the endless pain was gone. I ignored him and turned away. His clear voice behind him said, "Emam, you're the first person Po licked, E. It seems to be a serious illness." After a few days of peace, Songjichi harassed me every day, and I had to choose to call the police. Until the police took him away, Songjichi still couldn't believe it. Injured, he asked me, "Ling Nan, have you never loved me, E?" TMD, no one told me. Songjichi is a narcissist. Think all the girls like him? I squeeze out 2 hot tears. Do I love you, E? Can't you feel it? You have a stomachache. I get up early to make porridge for you and bring you lunch every day. No matter how late you play, I will wait for you. You ask me now, have ever loved you? Green tea quotes from yesterday finally come in handy. Forgive my duplicity. Songjichi looked delighted. I knew it. But I don't love you now. When I have a stomachache, you have sex with someone else. I waited all night on the sofa for you. And who are you with, E? Finally, I burst into tears and cried my heart out. Oscar, can't you mail me a statuette? I sniffed. Now, I beg you to spare me and spare yourself. I'll be someone else's bride and you'll have lots of kids, E. A bunch of them are yours, not yours. Then I decided to run home, stifled laughter, shaking a shake of the shoulders. Behind the sound of sirens sounded. Songjichi is the future leader of the song group. I don't need to have a bad relationship with him. I'd rather create a moonlight image and ask him for help. In the adult world, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. I was chewing crisps when there was a knock at the door. Songjichi? I saw the man walking the dog on the monitor. How could it be him? I just moved here, he replied. And I'm thinking of bringing some fruit to your neighbor. Move here? What a bummer. I wasn't very nice to him, but the people who lived here were all rich or well-to-do, so I opened the door. You? The man exclaimed in surprise. Let's formally meet. My name is Lu Yichuan. Looking at his outstretched left hand, I suddenly remembered how the dog kept licking me. I didn't have a good airway. Ling Nan, don't call me if you're okay, E. As he spoke, he lifted the fruit basket in his right hand and slammed the door behind him. Very strange, recently out can encounter Lu Yichuan. This time I casually feed some stray cats will meet him. Ling Nan, what a coincidence. Are you here to feed the stray cats? Does he often feed stray cats? Did you make these cartons? Simple cardboard boxes have been installed in the usual places for stray cats. He scratched his head. It's kind of ugly. I looked at his determined face, his eyes shining softly as I fed the cat. I shave my head. He's got a lot of free time. I went to find Su Xian. Now Su's bankruptcy, her life plummeted, pampered daughter miss also taste to the bottom of the bitter. She was guarding the pancake stand when I found her. Some took up a stall to sell trinkets. And Su Xian, after graduating from university, has not been out to work, after the family bankrupt interview and everywhere rebuffed. She glanced fearfully at the 2 bodyguards behind me. What are you doing here? I'll introduce you to a good business. I took out a wad of money from my bag. Here's $10,000. You come with me, and it's yours. Su Shen obviously didn't believe me, but when she saw the money, she swallowed hard. I took her to the bar across the street from the Golden Nightclub, where Zhao Xinshan worked. Su Shen nervously pinched the corner of his clothes and looked around alertly. The Zhao Xinshan that dresses bear takes wine bottle to appear. They two people are together stunned. Zhao Xinshan moved the bottle behind him, neither standing nor sitting. I smiled at her. Sit down, open a bottle of wine, and drink with Su Xuan. Zhao Xinshan pale, trembling all over, a careless hands of the bottle will fall. I grabbed the bottle and said, You two drink. She burst into tears. Please, please let me go. Su Shen faced out, is to drink a bottle of wine. Zhao Xinshan how scared into this. You can't die if you drink, I said. But if you don't, I'll make your life a living hell. She took the bottle tremblingly and poured 2 glasses. Su Shen guessed drinks may have a problem. Dare not reach out to take. I took out 3 wads of money and threw them at her. After you drink, these are yours. They drank in silence, and I stayed for a moment to keep them from coughing up their drinks. Seeing their faces flushed and their hands scratching restlessly, I left with satisfaction. As long as the bar to the right man, Zhao Xinshan gave them a drug on the wine. If she is pregnant, she is on the rich list. If she is not, she uses nude pictures of her clients to defraud her of money. For so many years she was not found, because her old love gangland, ordinary people really do not dare to provoke. She gave half of the money she cheated to her old lover to get his protection. I have to say Zhao Xinshan is very clever. When I entered the bar, I asked someone to pass a message to the bar. There was a young talent in booth 8, and sure enough, she hurried up. I don't want to know what happens after that. But Zhao Xinshan private life erosion, early diagnosis of HIV, Su Shen will also get sick. I called the president of a university and made it clear that if Yiziming was in charge of the project, I would withdraw my funding. I didn't hesitate to hang up when the headmaster kept promising that I would get a better professor. Walking alone in the street, the bustling cries of the ears, fragrant smell guide me forward. I went to the sweet potato stand and bought a steaming baked sweet potato. Take a bite. I burst into tears. Bad guys by my sanctions. I have not become a cold-blooded bad guy. It was as if I had been thrown into a cold winter lake. I felt cold all over and I could hardly breathe. Help me! Help me! Somebody help me! There was a sharp knock on the door and I managed to open a crack and finally fainted. My world is dark. I picked up the small body, shivering. When will I be free? To see the light again? Seems to be very noisy, waves of random footsteps. After daylight, is the sun, my sun, the long-lost sun. The pungent disinfection water smell fills the nasal cavity. Lu Yichuan is peeling the apple for me. I struggled to open my mouth. Thirsty. He hurriedly gave me water and said in a worried voice, You have a fever of 39 degrees. It's a good thing I'm a good neighbor. I closed my eyes. Thank you. He spent 2 days in hospital until he made a full recovery. Lu Yichuan may have some ideas about me, but I can't love others. I don't understand love at all, so I don't want to delay him. Looking at him busy, I pursed lips, or determined, Lu Yichuan, I can't give you any response. I have psychological problems, so don't waste efforts. His hand as he made the bed paused. Self-absorbed. I had to smile. I hope so. Since then, Lu Yichuan was really not often loitering in front of me. My heart cannot say what feeling. I was dealing with some unfinished business that day when He Ziming came to see me in a huff. He waited outside the company for 3 hours before I spoke to him. The big fire was now out. He said quietly, "I am the only one who can take charge of the project. Will you give it back to me?" I smiled grimly. "He Ziming, you should be glad you are a university teacher. I won't argue with you, or you wouldn't even have your job." He rubbed himself to his feet. "I filmed what you did in the private room. If you don't want to tarnish your image, hire me to be the project manager." Really funny, is He Ziming filled with paste in his mind? Fine, don't you dare, your university job is gone. He Ziming put all his eggs in one basket and pulled out his mobile phone. I motioned to the secretary behind me, who snatched his phone and quickly deleted the video. He came back to the phone, then said, "I copied a lot, you are ready to be ruined." I shouted to him, "Then I will show you the power of capital." He Ziming was fooled and looked at me foolishly. He went back in disgrace. I am not going to ask the university to remove He Ziming from his position. After all, it is not easy for a country to train a professor, but he has no personality. I want him to look at the hearts and minds of the project was taken over by the enemy, looking at his opponents everywhere, pressure ahead to show him, He Ziming heart must be needle-like pain, there is such an effect is enough. The front desk says there's a man here. No appointment. It's Gouger. I stood at the top of the building and watched as he and Gouger met and walked away arm in arm. Feeling like another drama was about to unfold, I returned to my desk and got to work. After He Ziming came to see me once, I lived in peace for several days. My mother called, asked me to go home during the National Day holiday. I suddenly realized that I hadn't been home for 4 years. Originally wanted to a busy year as an excuse to refuse, but there are important things to do home, I must go home. Sitting on the sofa, parents warm and some at a loss. I gave them a bank card. "Mom and Dad, there are 300,000 yuan in this card, enough to buy a house for the youngest. You also don't disrelish little, big environment is bad, I also can't earn a few money." They pretended to shirk too. I directly plug my mother hands. The password is my brother's birthday. They nodded with tears in their eyes. I don't want to see their tears. Get up back to the house. Began to investigate High 3 class teacher's address. Miss Lin was over 50 when she taught us, and now she is old enough to retire. I've bought some tonics and I'm going to visit him tomorrow to ask him something. The sun was shining, and the town was alive with activity. I stood in front of Lin's house, afraid to step into the foot. Suddenly a little boy rushed out of it and banged into me. The little boy got up and rubbed his ass. "Sister, who are you looking for?" I looked at the dirty boy in front of me, patted him on the dirt, and handed him a candy. "My grandpa is at home." "Tsutsu, who are you talking to?" An old voice sounded in the courtyard. "Grandpa, this beautiful sister wants to see you." Tsutsu took my hand and entered the yard. Teacher Lin, grey hair, although old, but still remember the appearance, let me disgusted. My nose was sore and my eyes were red. "Teacher, do you still remember me?" Teacher Lin looked at me closely, took a step back and shook his head. "I don't remember." I smiled at the sky. "I do not remember well." I left. When I got to the door, Tsutsu called out to me, Sister, will you come to me again?" I rubbed his hair. "No." Tsutsu pursed his lips and thrust a note into my hand. "Grandpa gave it to you." I opened it. There were only 3 words on it. "I'm sorry." The corner of the eye shed a tear, All the pain will be over. Everything will be better. I didn't stay at home too long. I packed up and went back to the office. Wang Dao called me for dinner, and I said yes. Burn your bridges? You don't want old friends once you've set up a company? Wang Dao made fun of me. I teased him. You just got engaged. I don't want to bother you. He opened a beer. Does Song Ji Chi still pester you? He is just acting, she said. He is going to chase a young model. If you're a dandy, you should fart. I'm chewing on a kebab. Tough? How come I didn't see you tough before? Didn't you have the right to be tough before? Wang Dao poured me a drink and said, Hey, are you coming to the department store dinner tomorrow? I pointed to my nose. Me? Forget it. I don't want to go. I was desperate to attend the banquet, but now I'm slacking off. I didn't say anything. I used to be like a dodder, looking for one big tree after another. Now it's different. I don't need to attach to anyone, because I've become a towering tree. Go, go, my wife wants to introduce her brother to you. I smiled. Isn't it cute? If you look at my wife, you can guess whether he is handsome or not. Wang Dao was eager to make us a couple, and he was thinking of keeping his money where his mouth was. Wang Dao's brother-in-law, Lu Yichuan, who had recently retired from the army, was in his late 20s and had no girlfriend. He thought we'd met for the first time and was keen to introduce us to each other. We chatted and Wang Dao laughed. I wore a dress sitting on the swing, enjoying the cold moonlight. I used to be very comfortable with pushing glasses, but now I just want to be alone. Suddenly a coat was draped over me to drive away the cold. I looked up into the man's deep eyes. What are you doing out here? Lu Yichuan looked down at my feet, and not used to. The original is not used to the surface of enthusiasm, but in fact each scheming party. I laughed and said, Wang Dao doesn't care. We're still good neighbors. But I don't want to be your neighbor anymore. I put my finger on the swing. Are you moving? The first time someone nakedly care about me, I don't want to lose, but I really cannot give him commitment. He squatted in front of me, looking directly into my eyes warm and gentle. Po needs a hostess. Be my girlfriend? Moonlight sprinkled on him. Lu Yichuan had a touch of light. His eyes hot love will surround me. Very warm, very warm. I hurried away from his eyes, my heart racing, as if I had forgotten to breathe. I believe that there is a beautiful love in the world, but I know that love will not come to me, have been hurt so that I cannot believe any feelings. My palms sweated. Why, like me? I don't think he made a very good first impression on me. He was all teary and snotty and as ugly as it gets. He looked at me softly. The first time I met you, I asked for leave to have a good rest, but my mother dragged me to the party. You were talking to the Japanese in the middle of the party. You were the center of attention. Even the lights favored you. I was shocked to learn that he was at my first party. The second time I saw you, I was injured and transferred to the city hospital. He paused. Just in time to see you taking good care of your boyfriend. He was cold to you. I thought, if you were my girlfriend, I will not be willing to bully you. A sense of powerlessness rose in my heart. If he knew I had been someone else's lover, would he still like me? The third time you cried your heart out, my heart ached and I thought of letting Po make you happy. He steadied the swing. You don't have to answer me. I want to say it. I'm sorry if it bothers you. Facing his gentle eyes, I feel even flowing in the moonlight on his body have become gentle. The messengers. I nodded. I'll think about it. Ling Nan? What are you two doing? Unfortunately, Song Jiqi came out for a smoke. What do you care? You're my ex-girlfriend. Why is that none of my business? I pulled up my coat, taunting him. Did the young model come after me because she didn't get me? You. Lu Yichuan, let's go. Lu Yichuan several times to open his mouth to ask, but still did not speak. We agreed to go home together, but Wang Dao had something to discuss with Lu, and I thought of going to the convenience store nearby to buy something first. Through a dark alley, the commercial street is outside. As expected, I was dragged down the alley and it was he Ziming and Gouger who did the stupid thing. I was prepared. I had bodyguards behind me. One phone call and they'd come, but the alley was narrow and dark and accident-prone, and I decided to wait until I was out in the alley. Gouger grabbed me and pulled me over to Great Road, where there was a van. I looked at Gouger and he Ziming. Why didn't they even wear black hoods? They didn't have any sense of being kidnappers. I'm a family man. I fight with mistresses. A backhand slap to Gouger's neck and a kick. He Ziming jumped on me and slapped me while he was on top of me, calling me a bitch. I put my hands on his eyes. He cried out in pain, and the three of us wrestled together. Suddenly the van not far away moved by itself and came straight at it. All three of us were startled. It was too late to react. I saw Su Xian's ferocious smile in the driver's seat. The last moment was a wall swooping in, and then I quickly rolled over the side of the road. Sizzle! I looked up to see Lu Yichuan's tolerant look, after hearing the fierce sound of sudden brakes, soar to irregular parabola. My first brush with death. Bring Su Xian to the police station. 2 people on the ground were picked up by ambulance. I was dumbfounded looking at Lu Yichuan's bloody back, what is quietly sprouting in my heart. He rubbed my head and reassured me that he was fine. I looked at him blankly and then burst into tears. When he rushed to me, I knew my son appeared. Life and death, I just remember how pathetic. No one even loves me. I also have the right to be loved, is not it? Lu Yichuan's eyes bent into a crescent moon. He is really a crybaby. Ear. From small to large, no one firmly choose me. I just want a duty-bound preference. Even if know my miserable past, don't need his pity. Give me a warm hug is good. Even if I know the means to climb, I hope he does not look at me with prejudice. Just rub my hair. Too many bitter moments. Early forget what sweet taste. Perhaps I have gone through so much suffering. For Lu Yichuan. I grabbed the shirt on his chest. Mr. Lu Yichuan, do you still need a girlfriend? With Lu Yichuan as my partner, I set up a non-profit organization called the Anti-Bullying. The group grew stronger and more students were being protected. The following year, I resigned as the chairman of Ling's company and ran around the campus with Lu Yichuan, hoping to make a modest contribution to the anti-bullying organization, bring bright smiles back to the faces of the students. Years later, I am the mother of 2 children. My eldest son was a sophomore in high school. Because he didn't do his job properly, he became obsessed with off-campus bullies. The teacher invited me into the campus. I am now an ordinary mother identity. Listening to a teacher's teachings, I feel sleepy. Lu Jie mother, you must be diligent and discipline the child. Lu Jie head clever, we can read school. Yes, I know, teacher. Lu Jie is too comfortable. The summer threw him into the camp experience on the steady. As I walked down the campus path, I encountered a zongfu of acacia blossoms that wafted up my nose and into the air. Suddenly playground toilet came the sound of punching and kicking. I stare big eyes. Here is far away from the teaching building, and not too many people walking. Do not worry, hit the child will be under the dead hand. I got into the ladies' room, and sure enough I saw 5 girls beating the short-haired girl on the floor. I turned on the camera phone. About the time I rushed over to protect the short-haired girl. What are you doing? Perhaps didn't expect someone suddenly rushed in, the head of the girl stunned. And then she straightened up. Aren't. She hooked up with my boyfriend. I advise you to mind your own business, or even you play. The girl in her arms shivered, but still retorted, I didn't. Aunt? Do I look that old? I had a straight face. I'm her parent. I filmed the process of your beating and scolding just now. If you don't want me to call the police, go back quickly. 5 people looked at each other, pale, panicked to run out of the toilet. I picked up the girl. I'll take you to the school clinic. The girl straightened messy hair, exposed the comely little face. Can be small face, red light swollen. Obviously was a lot of slaps. Thank you, Auntie. While dressing her wound, the school doctor scolded her for her carelessness. It's obviously somebody else's, and a doctor can't tell. The professional level is so poor. Looking at the girl I love dearly, and flash out years ago that hidden in the dark corner of the secret tears of the girl. I didn't ask her why she was being bullied. I just tried to help her. I'll send you a video of them bullying you. You decide what to do. She looked up at me, imprisoned in the eyes of tears, or left. To be honest, I wanted her to give the video to the police, but it was one of the few moments in her life when she was brave enough to decide for herself. Out of the window, cicadas were ringing in my ears. The sun was shining in. I saw a ray of sunlight through her black and soft hair. We didn't speak. She spoke in hushed tones. Auntie, can you accompany me to the police station to report a crime? I fixedly looked at her. This was the sun-shining girl, as if the girl who had been hiding in the dark before was pulled out of the dark, standing in the sun openly. I smiled. Okay. Although the bad girl was arrested in the police station, but I still worry that she was bullied. I found Liu Jie, ready to threaten him. Do mom a favor? Liu Jie careless, really don't know who he followed. What's the favor? To protect Li Hui from Class 1, Senior 2. Liu Jie was mad. Why? There's no reason. If you don't help me, I'll tell Liu Yichuan you're not doing your proper job. He'll definitely throw you in the army camp during the summer vacation. Hey, what should I do about my affair with Li Yi? I was surprised. You are too narcissistic, boy. You look at the way you hang around. Which girls can see you? Besides, do you understand what secretly means? Liu Jie gnashed his teeth. You are really my mother. Through the Li Hui thing, I really feel that my campus anti-bullying organization should be reformed. Otherwise, why would there be Li Hui this situation? I took out that year vertical and horizontal market coercion, found that there are really some people only take money, don't work. Damn, hundreds of thousands of children will be hurt physically and mentally because of their little actions. I kicked a lot of people and took back the responsibility of being the leader. I go out early and come back late every day. Liu Yichuan cannot bear to see me busy, ready to resign to help me. I smiled at him. Your work is as important as mine, and I'm willing to work hard for my career. He rubbed my hand, eyes full of heartache, and my girl has suffered so much. I just don't want you always think of bad things before. My eyes were firm. Liu Yichuan, when I saw those children, I didn't think about the bad things that had happened before. On the contrary, I felt that I had saved them and saved myself countless times. So, I was willing. Liu Yichuan kissed me on the forehead. I am with you. I send Liu Jie to protect Li Hui. 2 people also quickly become good friends. Lu Jie protection Li Hui Hui. Li Hui Hui help him tutorial. His exam scores rub up. More let me think of is, there are really girls look at hanged Lu Jie. After the college entrance examination, Lu Jie coyly took Li Hui Hui home. See there, son blushing. I do not understand what. Very good. They too at Tsinghua, a Peking university, also very good. I have saved countless wrongdoers and saved countless children of bullying. Thinking about them, I feel that everything I do is meaningful. I don't want them to be afraid to go to class reunions in the future, or to go to great lengths to get back at their bullies. I don't want them to be like me.